I'm Penny Jones, the Senior Winemaker Manager at Bay of Fires Winery, and we're here today in lovely Pipers River. Just going to provide you a little vintage report. So vintage in a nutshell was pretty good. We did our allocation tasting yesterday and was actually really pleased to see that all varieties are all looking really strong after what was another challenging year.
Hi, it's Cynthia Semmens from Marions Vineyard here in the north of Tasmania on the west bank of the Tamar River, and I'm here to chat with you a little bit about vintage 2020-2021. So it was a pretty intense vintage. Vintage started out with a quite mild winter, so we had bud burst a little bit earlier than we would normally have. Then we had a couple of scares with some frosty spring days and mornings. We don't have any frost protection here, and luckily we got away with not having any damage done to our buds, but it's always a bit of a sleepless time thinking about what you might lose.
Hi, I'm Astrid from Boomer Creek Vineyard. I'm here on the east coast of Tasmania. Vintage for us this year, and I think all producers on the coast, was a bit of a smooth sailing one initially, with a bit of a full 360 triple backflip towards the end.
Hi, I'm Steve from Stefano Lubiana wines. We had a little bit of rain mid-vintage, but I think because of our biodynamic practices, we got phenolic maturity a bit earlier, and so we picked most of our crop before the rain.
We had some good conditions starting off, not too much rain, nice amount of sun, just nice ripening levels. And then of course the trials of tribulation, the heavens opening up right in the middle of picking fruit, and between 100 and 180 mils was dumped on various locations on the east, so that certainly made things a bit difficult.
I think from January to mid-February we had about 183 mils of rain, which was quite amount of management we needed to do in the vineyard.
I think the worst day was the day leading up to that big rain event at the end of March, where the viticulturalist and myself were driving around in the car, very, very morose, just looking at the weather map. And I think we were lucky to get away with things as we did, so things didn't end up quite as badly as we feared.
We ended up having very little disease in the vineyard, and particularly botrytis, given that it was such a high rainfall year.
And I think there was some pretty clean, nice looking fruit parcels coming into the winery this year.
We had some beautiful dry weather and lovely sunshine towards the start of vintage, that all of the early ripening varieties came on, and they were all ripe at once. So it was a pretty manic first couple of weeks.
After the rain, actually, the level of ripening in the vines was pretty rapid, so that sped things up very hard and fast, and I think the stress levels went up pretty quick as well.
2021 vintage was a little bit challenging in terms of employment because of COVID, so we had to dig in, and we got all the staff on site to help in the winery this year. Which worked out pretty good.
And for some of us that are relying on hand pickers, it was a bit of a scrabble for that as well.
The biggest challenge, I think, was, other than the weather, would have been hand pickers. We certainly had difficulties getting enough pickers in our sites around Tassie, which meant we had small parcels coming in, which made efficiencies quite difficult, and made for a longer, more drawn out season.
And the moment that made it all worthwhile really was getting the fruit into the winery and tasting the concentration. So low yields, but in really, really great quality. Very, very aromatic wines. We had wonderful fruit flavours, wonderful acid balance, and yeah, they're just really looking quite delicious.
Wines this year are looking very fresh, bright, crisp. Acidities are slightly higher than normal. And the reds, got good tannin development.
Our aromatic whites, so our Riesling particularly, and our Sauvignon Blanc, which ripen the very end of the season for us, were actually full of flavour and quite ripe and delicious.
Pretty well looking like a good 21 vintage overall, despite a few little hard tribulations. Definitely look out for some flashy reds as well.
Most exciting wine, I think, from yesterday, again, I'm going to say the Chardonnay. Pinots all look really strong, but I think for us, we've managed to source a bit more fruit. The season was really conducive to some really flavourful and beautiful Chardonnays that have maintained that acid but have got lots of flavour and lots of weight. So we won't find that out until that's released in October next year, so we'll just have to wait and see.